passage from Isaiah comes in the second chapter of Isaiah. In the first chapter of Isaiah, the vision that Isaiah has is one really of destruction and chaos and retribution for sin. The second chapter, which we hear the beginning of today, kind of counters that. There is one slight thing that I want to mention, and it's in the translation, because in the translation it says, this is the vision that Isaiah saw. And in this translation, there are many other translations that translate that differently, and I think in a significant way, where the translation is, this is the word of God, or this is the word that Isaiah saw. Now that might sound like a strange way of putting it. Now I'm sure that's one of the reasons that the translators in the New International Version of the Scriptures translated it differently. But in many other translations, even contemporary translations, it still says, this is the word of God that Isaiah saw. And one of the reasons that that is significant is because it talks about the word of God and the prophets sharing the word of God. The word of God was thought to be a living entity, an active, catalytic entity. Now, once it was spoken in the world, it became active and went out and accomplished, or began the process of accomplishing what God spoke. The idea is that the prophet himself doesn't have control over that word. It's the word of God. And the prophet simply speaks it out loud for God. But in speaking that word, things begin to go into motion to bring about what the prophecy says will happen. And what this prophecy says will happen is that in the later days, and this is the only time Isaiah uses that phrase, in the later days, other prophets use that, but it means at the time of the Messianic age, or at the end time, if you will, that this moment will come about where the Messiah truly is the influence, the significant influence of the world. That people will recognize that the faith of Judah has been fulfilled in this Messiah. And that people, in recognizing that, will stream to understand and receive their instruction from this Messiah and from his influence. And in fact, it will be so significant and so powerful that it will put aside all disharmony, all violence, all hate, all evil, and that the world will be reconciled. So that's a significant message, a beautiful message. I mean, can you imagine what that would be like for there to be no turmoil and no hatred and no discord? I mean, he talks here about swords being turned into plowshares and spears into pruning hooks, and you know, that war will not be eliminated. Of course, that would be the ultimate wonderful experience. But it's not just that. It is a peace-filled experience that would permeate the entire world. As I say, the word of God goes out to accomplish that prophecy. We are still in the midst of that prophecy. You know, that the Messianic age has not come about. So we can't dismiss this prophecy and say, well, you know, it didn't work, we're still at war, and that people still are at odds with each other and all the rest of it. we can't do that. The word is out and active still. We as people of faith live in the hope that that very word will be accomplished, that someday all the animosities, all the hatred, all the turmoil, all the war, and the most significant expressions of that discord, down to the lowest expressions or most insignificant expressions of that discord, will be resolved. We place our trust in that hope. And that's the hope that we're called to live in, particularly in this Advent season as we prepare ourselves for celebrating the arrival of the Messiah into the world. We prepare ourselves by trying to live in that hope that this peace that is prophesied will come about someday, and that we live in the midst of that process. I think the gospel passage is an expression of two things that are related to Isaiah's reading. So here's a centurion, a Gentile, basically unclean. It would have been improper for him to invite Jesus, a rabbi, to his home to cure this servant of his. But he does so. He's a good man. He's not asking anything for himself. He's asking something for his servant. So Jesus is, so there are two pieces that are part of this. In the one, then, Jesus does demonstrate the power of the Messiah. He demonstrates his ability to accomplish what he wills, and that is to do away with this illness. And he can do it from wherever he wants. It's his power to do that. It demonstrates his power over evil, over the things that constrain us. So that's the first thing. So it does demonstrate the power of the Messiah, and that's a tie-in to the Isaiah passage. But the second thing is, it's also a demonstration of conciliation. So here is Jesus addressing the Gentiles and bringing the Gentiles to a moment of conciliation or reconciliation with the messianic message. So Jesus is in this moment really in many ways fulfilling the prophecy, or there's this partial fulfillment of the prophecy that Isaiah speaks, and that the Messiah is, first of all, powerful, and secondly, that he is able to bring the Gentiles, all the nations, to himself as part of that reconciliation process. I think that captures